What will a post-Trump American right wing look like? Would a GOP under Desantis just be a return to old Bush-style neoconservatism? Or is it something brand new? I'm mainly interested in economic policy. As the Democrats seem to be moving more towards progressive economics, will the Republican Party remain neoliberal? Something tells me that a new Republican economic platform would feature calls for a return to the gold standard, since there seems to be lots of talk about that among conservative circles. IDK. I would like to point out though. Would a GOP under Desantis just be a return to old Bush-style neoconservatism? Desantis is going for the MAGA angle. I would also say the form of conservatism led by Bush is dead. Ask again in 6 months. Republicans had about a month where they were flirting with becoming non-Trump in 2020-21 after he lost the general and won 6 and then fell back in line. Until proved otherwise, I'd assume they do the same in 2023. It'll look weird and non-charismatic. Forgive this dumb sentence, but right-wing ideas are sometimes popular amongst the general public and right-wing policies are generally not popular at all. You need some sugar for that medicine, and for some reason, the faith and flag whites of the GOP went with the TV guy. I don't know who the next music man is going to be. I guess Desantis if he's there, but he's not really ticking that have a beer with box. It will morph again like the Republican moral majority morphed into hate Clinton fanatics morphed into the anti-Obama into the Tea Party into the Trumpeteers but still keep that angry authoritarian and anti-democracy divisive thread all the way through. A post-Trump right wing isn't going to snap back to Reagan like a rubber band. It's going to continue bleeding madness and hate, like an open wound. DeSantis is no better than Trump, and he may be worse. I would rather have a selfish idiot and a buffoon than a sinister dictator and malevolent leader. Not very different. More or less subtle like before Trump, but not substantially different, like before Trump. Most probably, they're going to focus even more on immigration. That is their best chance of remaining relevant in elections. The immigration issue is going to heat up further as the planet does and the number of climate refugees is going to explode. Also, internally displaced Americans refugees is going to be a thing and you need guns to protect your property from people fleeing. Arizona will be a Republican selling point. Which is funny considering it was Republicans, under Nixon, who eliminated the gold standard in the first place. Return of the gold standard to me reads as more of a libertarian Ron Paul wish list than for Republicans conservatives. No one in the GOP seems to be interested in the free market. It's all about attacking companies for being too woke and other imaginary transgressions. But that all makes perfect sense when you consider the GOP's only interest in the free market was to undermine the Civil Rights Act. Now that the free market is no longer helping that, they've dropped it like the useless phrase it is. DeSantis is much more in line with MAGA ultranationalist culture war politics than with neocons. I'm not really sure what the direction is to be honest. But right now, I'd say in the short term, any hope for Republicans to turn to normalcy is just wishful thinking. They are all in on the culture war shit. I think the party tries to go for a more palatable version of MAGA that appeals to moderates and independents but backing away from some of the Jan 6th, Stop the Steal, and other hostile rhetoric that made candidates come across as extremist and therefore less appealing. I don't think the party will look to entirely retool just yet, but the DeSantis brand of MAGA may have an opportunity to make its case in 2024. I also don't think he's a neocon by any measure, but he is at least someone who will govern and work with some folks on the left in an emergency or to pass popular legislation. DeSantis is a fascist, and the establishment Republican Party seems to be modeling its particular brand of fascism on Viktor Orban. It will be interesting to see if they start talking about price controls or any of his other policies. I don't expect them to veer too much from standard neoliberalism. Why on earth would you return to the gold standard and turn us into a country like Greece which has no control of their currency? We and Denmark are the only two countries in the world with a debt limit. If most of what is owed to oneself, is it really even debt? Tea Party MAGA is here to stay. Their claws and money are dug in deep. The name will probably change, but that's it. Unless Trump completes his destruction of the GOP, it will continue to be based on grievance and revenge. I'm hoping he annihilates it completely and it can be rebuilt as a reasonable conservative option. I think white supremacy, anti-feminism, anti-woke culture grievance is going to remain a defining feature of the right for a while. Whether it will continue to bring along the other baggage, conspiracy theories, rejection of expertise, isolationist foreign policy, no coherent economic policy, is an open question. It will look like a bunch of morons walking in a circle and chuntering about wokeness, owning the libs, and Hunter Biden's laptop. Trump is toast, but Trumpism is here to stay. It will be smarter, sneakier, and far more evil. The right is already pushing Desantis, aka Ronald Trump DeSantis. Don't be fooled by him. He is worse than DJT by a long shot. Beware. Probably hammering on Democratic weak points, like crime and guns. Maybe some anti-woke stuff like the Supreme Court case that will possibly end affirmative action. I know a lot of people who vote either third party or not at all because of Democrats' stances on guns. The mask will go back on. None of them voted for Trump, although they all think he wasn't necessarily always wrong. The quiet parts will go back to being quiet. Nothing will actually change but the facade. And we all got a real good look behind that mask. Over the last few years, I don't think it's gonna stick like it did after W. Their economic policy will cease to matter, and their domestic policy will become the Taliban light. The corporate arm of the enlightened centrists that compose the non-progressive part of the Democratic Party. Being lead DeSantis, bonus points that he is young, so he can stay for a long time in politics. It'll be a new irrational politician but not as insane as idiot Trump. That level of stupidity he brought was epic. No, the neoconservatism movement is dead. Trumpism will live on long after Trump is gone, and it will get crazier and crazier and crazier until they are punished so badly by the electorate that they have no choice but to come back to planet Earth. Pretty much the same minus the screeching constantly to arrest the opposition, and hopefully a lot less of a media circus nonstop. It would be really nice when the next Republican POTUS sits if I don't feel obligated to watch the news on to see what new low they managed, when I thought no POTUS would ever sink as low as yesterday's news. The US isn't returning to the gold standard ever. Dumb idea that never worked. DeSantis believes in the tenets of Trumpism. The only difference between them is their demeanor. Smiley face, DeSantis is a cultural, grievance Trumpian warrior, who is the political son and protege of DJT. He doesn't do policy. Economic, foreign or otherwise. DeSantis is Trump without the late-night, psychotic, social media ramblings. If you want an establishment Republican, DeSantis ain't it. If the GOP can't get rid of the crazies, it won't matter who's on top, not named Trump. It has fallen into a conspiracy-laden mega cult where normal Republican beliefs have been washed out in what's become a cesspool of madness backed by unproven debunked allegations and lies that has normal Republicans cowardly hiding in a corner afraid to fight and regain their once credible party. By the time there is a post-Trump, he will have burned everything around him to the ground. He is not normal, he's a malignant narcissistic sociopath and should be discussed assuming that. Fascism is here to stay until the Republicans purge it from their party. I don't think that's likely. Conservatives will continue to flee, leading to a fractured right. A man can dream. For economics, I assume they would talk about austerity and gutting social programs. Then when actually in office, cut taxes for corporations and the wealthy. So not much different from Bush to Trump to whoever is next. Don't be naive. DeSantis is all in with the global fascist movement. He's already taken away constitutional rights from U.S. citizens in Florida, and is shamelessly parroting the Nazis' anti-LGBT propaganda from the 1930s. He's just another fascist freak who wants to destroy the USA in particular, and concept of a democratic republic in general. Don't give him the benefit of the doubt. Please. More mob candidates. More conspiracy theories. More blatant attempts at making America less democratic. Less attempting to legislate and more attempting to obstruct tax hikes. Trump changed the campaign strategy. McConnell changed the governing strategy. Like Reagan and Bush Sr., not as extreme as you would have thought, but certainly sounding like it. And yes, I know, everything I said sounds extreme, but this is America. We've only been an actual democracy for a few decades anyway, so. It should be noted that DeSantis isn't anywhere near a neocon. He's a populist, nationalist authoritarian just like Trump. Asking Reddit what conservatives think is like asking Reddit what women think. Even if they mean well, they just don't have a clue. Trump is an empty vessel. He takes the shape of whatever he's trying to impress. He is but a reflection of the soul of his supporters. So nothing will change. They are everything Trump demonstrates. More fascism. DeSantis is a war criminal and a fascist with a smile. No difference. Hateful, vindictive and seeking to end democracy for their own personal gain, but just from a different angle. It will get more and more racist and openly white supremacist, which they'll counter by putting more and more token minorities on TV. Voting patterns have shown that for every one less white America becomes, the GOP wins roughly one more of the white vote. As such, they'll go all in on the replacement theory and will be able to win presidential elections with 97% of the white vote even as America becomes minority majority. Hell no, DeSantis is way worse than Trump. He has intellect and is a psychopath. Plus, he has supports with very deep pockets. It will be the end of the US democracy if he becomes president.